Snow was falling sideways that morning, coming down so hard it felt like the world might just disappear. And there I was, cup of coffee, rattling on the table, listening to the National Weather Service scream about a Category 5 blizzard heading right for us. I remember thinking, well, this is it. Pulled on my gloves and stepped out onto my porch, and that's when I saw her. Karen Bloomfield. Standing in my driveway, fur coat cinched tight, holding her clipboard like it was a badge of office, grinning like she owned the blizzard itself. Behind her, a tow truck idled, chain hooked to my snowplow, the only snowplow in the entire neighborhood. She didn't even let me ask what she was doing. Just waved her clipboard, hollered over the wind. Your vehicle violates HOA aesthetic code. The engine roared. The chain snapped taut, and in under 30 seconds, my plow, our neighborhood's lifeline, was gone, yanked away into the blinding snow. No, lie. The sky split open, right? Then ice pellets blasting sideways like bullets. Karen turned, tossed me one more smirk, and vanished into the storm. By noon, the temperature had dropped 20 degrees below zero, and I sat there at my window watching the town disappear under a wall of white. You know that silence after a blizzard, thick and absolute, where it feels like the world just hit pause. That's what we got. My phone buzzed neighbors asking if I could clear their driveways, and all I could text back was HOA took my plow. I could feel the panic through the screen. Mrs. Carter, 2 doors down, needed dialysis supplies. The Miller's baby was due next week. Everybody depended on the one snowplow Karen had just confiscated just to prove a point. Meanwhile, Karen's hosting an emergency compliance meeting at the Clubhouse Wine Cheese, and her logic, the storm wouldn't be that bad, and even if it was, county plows would save us. Except the county hadn't plowed this far up the ridge in 3 years, and the highway closed hours ago. The storm radar just crawled over us like a grinding wheel made of ice. By late afternoon, the monster hit. Roof lines vanished. Power lines fizzed and snapped. My porch lights flickered, then died. Gray twilight everywhere. I tried to shovel a path, but every time I cleared a foot, the wind erased it in seconds. I looked across the street. Karen's house lit up a floating ship in the snow windows, fogged over her Christmas lights, flickering under a blanket of ice. And then a weird sight, her husband Mark trying to dig out their Mercedes with a garden trowel, every motion swallowed by the blizzard. A decorative lamppost folded in half glass, shattering across the driveway, ice shards flying. I retreated inside and fired up my old generator, one of the last things HOA hadn't banned. Around 6 p.m., my phone buzzed Karen. Her voice shook, but she tried to keep that haughty tone. Jack, the clubhouse driveway is blocked. Snow's too high. Bring your plow, clear it immediately. I let her words hang. You mean the plow you had towed this morning? Silence. Pride collapsing. Yes, that one she finally managed. This is an emergency. I told her I'd love to help, but HOA paperwork said I wasn't allowed to operate it anymore. She hung up without another word. By midnight, the snow had sealed us in solid. Somewhere out there, Karen's Mercedes was buried under 6 feet of snow, and the only sound was the groan of freezing trees. I kept thinking about the irony. She called my plow an eyesore, and now the absence of it had turned her whole world into one. 2 a.m. Sheriff Daniels called, wanted to know where the impound lot was. County declared a disaster, and they needed every plow. I gave him the address, said, "You'll have to get past Karen first." He just laughed, tired and rough. Dawn broke, if you could call it that. Every house buried to the gutters, Karen's decorative mailbox. Now just a little hump under the ice. I grabbed my shovel, tried to cut a path to Mrs. Carter's, but hadn't made it 10 feet before Karen appeared at her window, banging and pointing at her driveway. "We're trapped." I just nodded. What was there to say? Sometimes actions come back to bite, and this storm had sharp teeth. It was almost comical, really, watching the queen of the HOA trapped by her own rules. In that frozen silence, it felt like poetic justice, nature writing the verdict in ice. The blizzard didn't bury me, it uncovered her. When the storm finally stopped, the world outside was erased and redrawn in nothing but white. I opened my door to a wall of snow higher than my head. My truck was somewhere under there, my plow still locked away, because Karen decided it clashed with the aesthetic harmony of Maplewood Estates. I boiled coffee on my generator stove and watched. The first sound that broke the silence, Karen's husband Mark screaming as he tried to dig out with a metal rake. Handle snapped. He slipped, vanished into adrift legs, kicking like some cartoon swallowed by a snow monster. I pulled on my parka, trudged out, found him half buried and mad as a hornet. They said the HOA would have contractors by now. I didn't answer. We both knew they meant Karen. She glared from her window robe, wrapped tight, looking like the queen of a frozen kingdom cracking apart. I waved. She shut the blinds. I kept shoveling toward Mrs. Carter's, my phone buzzing, neighbors begging for help. Someone's generator died, someone's roof was groaning. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a headache. This was a lockdown by nature. If something didn't change, people could get hurt or worse. I looked at the empty spot where my plow used to sit, felt my jaw tighten. By noon, a few neighbors braved the Snow George from Lot 18, Ellen the nurse. A couple others bundled like Arctic explorers. Jack George asked, "You got that rig, right?" I told them the truth. Impounded by HOA order. For a minute, nobody spoke. Ellen muttered, "That woman's gonna get someone killed." Meanwhile, across the street, Karen was directing teenage volunteers' kids of HOA board members, probably guilting them into shoveling. She barked orders like a drill sergeant, but her troops barely made a dent before a power line snapped and sent sparks flying. Everyone scattered. By mid-afternoon, clouds thickened again. The storm wasn't done just catching its breath. I fired up the emergency radio. County said no one would get to us till morning, maybe longer. Karen's decorative icicle lights had frozen into real swords, her driveway now a skating rink. Then I noticed lights flickering in Karen's upper window, a flashlight waving. Mark was outside shivering. Our power's gone, pipes froze. We can't get out. I told him gently, no rescue trucks coming. The highway's closed. Every house is its own island now. He nodded. Pride gone. "She did this," he whispered. I didn't argue. I finally reached Mrs. Carter's porch at midnight. She opened the door, oxygen machine humming. "You came?" she said. I smiled, cleared her steps, checked her generator, promised to return in the morning. On my way back, I saw Karen's Mercedes, a snowdrift now. Her bird bath cracked in half, her no commercial vehicles sign buried under 3 feet of ice. Nature had turned her rules into punchlines. I snapped a photo just to remember. The wind howled, the snow refroze, and somewhere out there, Karen's confidence was shattering as fast as the ice on her roof. Morning brought a gray glow. The snow had hardened into a wall. I had to chip my door open with a crowbar. The storm had quieted, but the threat wasn't gone. The wind cut like a knife, the neighborhood lifeless, except for Karen, still in her fur coat, dragging a sled toward the clubhouse. Mark limped behind her. She'd taken my snowplow, now she was hauling supplies like a failed Arctic explorer. She barked at neighbors to stay calm and adhere to the HOA emergency policy, a policy she wrote to ban generators and outdoor shelters. The irony, half the houses were freezing because of her. Ellen shouted about Mrs. Carter needing access. Karen ignored her, fumbling with her sled. I thought about helping, but the truth is, Karen didn't want help. She wanted control. And right now, control was slipping away fast. By late morning, pipes burst in several homes. I went door to door with a wrench and salt patching leaks, while the HOA volunteers vanished. When I reached Karen's, she was staring at her driveway now, a sheet of blue ice smooth as glass. Her Mercedes was sealed inside like a fossil. "This isn't possible," she muttered. "I paid for heated paving." I told her the outages made her fancy system useless. She snapped, "You think this is funny?" I looked at the frozen SUV and shrugged. "A little." She demanded I get her plow back. I reminded her she'd filed the paperwork labeling it unauthorized. Then UN authorized it as if reversing a government order was that easy. I shook my head and left her fury steaming in the cold. County crews were still blocked by avalanches, more storms coming. I checked the HOA records, remembered I'd installed the community router 10 years back. With a few clicks, I downloaded every enforcement order Karen had filed. Half were duplicates, some backdated, one stood out, the towing authorization signed by Karen herself, not the board. That was fraud, plain and simple. I copied everything to a flash drive, planned to hand it to the sheriff. But first, I had to clear my driveway. I dragged out an old salt sprayer and heater rig. George wandered over. "You figuring out how to fight back?" I just grinned. "Just staying warm." Drone up in the air. I checked the neighborhood roofs under glacial ridges. Karen's house like an ice museum. The backyard drainage system, rerouted by HOA for aesthetic stones, was blocked, trapping meltwater that had frozen and cracked the ground. Another brilliant move by Karen. I called the impound yard, told them my plow was towed during an emergency. "That's illegal," the manager said. "Who signed for it?" I gave him Karen's name. "She's in deep trouble," he whistled. "You want me to fax the release form to the sheriff?" "Absolutely." By dusk, I'd cleared a path to the street, symbolic a corridor of resistance through Karen's kingdom. Across the road, she stood on her porch, wrapped in a blanket, shouting into her phone, Mark beside her with a shovel. Suddenly, the ice under her steps cracked. She slipped, fell hard. I started toward her, but Mark got there first. She sat up, eyes wide, fear for the first time. The storm didn't care about her rules, it enforced its own. Next morning, stillness, everything encased in glassy ice. My porch rail was one solid curved shovel, frozen to the steps. But I'd made up my mind. If the HOA wanted paperwork, I'd use real evidence, salt heat, digital records. The air filled with steam as I chipped away melting veins through the ice. As the sun broke weakly through the clouds, I sent my drone up again, caught every angle of flooding and damage caused by HOA mistakes. I sent the footage to the county emergency office, and soon the news called. Luxury HOA subdivision buried after president seizes snowplow. The story spread the truth, moving faster than the thaw. That night, as the county began clearing roads, Karen's garage door collapsed under the weight of the ice. She panicked, tried to run, slipped again. I grabbed her, pulled her to safety just as the driveway split open, exposing the broken drainage pipe. For the first time, Karen said nothing, just stared at the damage, shaking. That afternoon, the county attorney arrived, clipboard thick with documents, deputies in tow. Karen was handed a formal notice, accounts frozen, fines assessed for unauthorized infrastructure. She looked across the street at me, no anger, just hollow acceptance. Neighbors started coming out again, clearing driveways, sharing food, helping each other. For the first time, there were no rules, just people. Later, Karen and Mark loaded their truck, moving out quietly. She caught my eye, said, "You were right. About all of it." I said nothing. She climbed into the car, and as they drove away, it felt like the whole neighborhood exhaled. We gathered at the ruined clubhouse that night, drank coffee, told stories, laughed for real. Spring came slowly, snow retreating inch by inch, the HOA gone replaced by a simple wooden sign, Maplewood Community. Funny thing is, after everything, I finally got my plow back. County cleaned it, repaired it. My neighbors joked it should be honorary town property. I scratched, "Not for show," into the blade, a private reminder. When the county awarded me a certificate, I realized it wasn't about revenge or recognition. It was about finally belonging. The storm hadn't destroyed us. It had revealed us. So let me ask you, do you think justice is best served cold? Or does real justice come when the ice finally melts and we're forced to see who's left standing? Drop your thoughts below, share your stories, your own neighborhood legends. If you've ever tangled with a Karen or survived a disaster with your community, let's hear about it. And hey, if you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories where justice and karma come riding in on a snowplow.